My name is Rebecca Collette, and first and foremost, I would like to thank the committee for allowing me to share with you all my story and allowing me to be a voice for those who aren't able to be here, those who aren't able to speak up and say exactly, how they feel about this bill and how much it would change their life for the better. I am a person in long-term recovery. That means I haven't used any mind or mood-altering drugs in 7 years. Next month, I'll be celebrating 8 years of sobriety. I was raised in a small southeastern Kentucky town. Most of you might know Harlan County. And there I was a bright student. I had great potential for my life. Unfortunately, before I even knew about the word addiction, I was already exhibiting signs. I was already exhibiting the symptoms, and mine began to manifest in high school. I started hanging out with the wrong crowd. Eventually, I became the wrong crowd. I was the kid that nobody wanted their kids around. I started making partying a priority over everything else. I even placed a great basketball career on the back burner to party and live the life that I wanted. I got pregnant my senior year in high school, but soon after the baby was born, I was off and running again. The habit I was developing got quite expensive, and I had to find ways to support it. I wasn't very creative at that young an age, so as a result, I was arrested at age 20 for trafficking a controlled substance. A judge ordered me to probation, but as bad as I did not want to go back to jail, it wasn't that easy to stop. Even a second pregnancy did not stop me at that point. I would end up serving 22 months at Hardin County Detention Center, where I was introduced to a substance abuse program called Lifeline Recovery 3. It was at this program that I was provided a different route for my life. I was taught about addiction. I was taught that I had a disease and that there was a different way. I was given the tools to change. Once I was out of jail, I was reunited with my children, and I remember it being such a joyous occasion. Just like it was yesterday, we were placed back together. I was eager to begin our new life together, but what I didn't know was my sentence was far from over. Even with the new direction my life was taking, I continued to face barrier after barrier. Every path to success was blocked by obstacles. Whether it was housing, education, especially employment, my criminal background always got in the way. I was turned down at every interview. It was very heartbreaking for me, and at times I felt hopeless. Even fast food places wouldn't give me a chance. Eventually, a manager at a local McDonald's gave me an opportunity to work for him. Even working full-time, I did not make enough money to support my family. It was then that I made the decision that I wanted to go back to school, but my past was still haunting me. I was denied admittance into college, and I was denied an apartment through subsidized housing. But fortunately, through advocating for myself and the support of my new family and the community, along with a lot of persistence and dedication, I've been able to stay on the right track. But even if you're on the right track, you'll eventually get run over if you don't move. Through advocating for myself, I was able to enroll in school eventually and obtain an apartment at the Family Scholar House. I'll be graduating in May with my master's degree in social work from the U of L's Kent School. I'm specializing in chemical dependency because I still have a passion for helping others on their path to recovery. I strive to be the best parent I can be to my teenagers now, and I have to be a good role model for them, because in the world we live in today, kids need good role models. They need someone to look up to. They're very involved with school activities, but because I have this on my record, I cannot volunteer at their school. They deserve me to be there for them. They're the most amazing and talented children that you'll ever come across. I may be biased about that, but to me, they are wonderful, and they deserve me to be there. I am by no means perfect, but I know I deserve a second chance. My experience with the criminal justice system has felt like a maze with every path leading to a dead end. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't have a story similar with a positive ending similar to mine. It's only common sense to provide these people with alternatives that ensure better outcomes, not only for people like me, but for the community as a whole. The time has come to update our laws, and it's time to move forward with reentry, and it's time to move forward with expungement. Again, I want to thank the committee for allowing me to speak and be a voice for those who aren't here.
Very, very loud voice. Thank you so much. Mr. Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Russell Coleman. I'm a practitioner with Frost Round Todd in Louisville, and I promise both you and members of the committee brevity because, quite frankly, there's nothing I can say or offer that will be nearly as compelling as what you've just heard. So I promise to be brief. Mr. Chairman, you and members of this committee are uniquely positioned to see many of the challenges we face in the Commonwealth at present, from pervasive drug abuse, both in rural Kentucky to our larger municipal areas, to the paucity of resources that our criminal justice and law enforcement organizations bring, to include the Department of Corrections, to attempt to stem this tide. You're uniquely situated, and I'm sure almost any member of this committee could cite to me the most recent recidivism rate here in the Commonwealth, right at 41.99%, an abysmal rate, demonstrating we're not doing something right. Mr. Chairman, I'm from Western Kentucky originally, and we describe innovation in the sense that if you always do what you've always done, you always get what you always got. 41% recidivism. It's a pleasure, though, to sit here on behalf of a group of individuals, on behalf of a group of organizations that have chosen to take a different approach. They've chosen to reach across the aisle. They've chosen to reach across the ideological spectrum, some further than others down that ideological spectrum. I appear here as a spokesperson and as a counselor to the new coalition, Kentucky Smart on Crime. This is a coalition of some of the most respected organizations from the right and the left, from the Kentucky Chamber to the ACLU, from our faith-based community, both Protestant and Catholic, from our right of center think tanks and our left of center think tanks, and from the criminal defense bar. Who would have thought that an hour ago I would have been standing at a press conference, again, with the Kentucky Chamber and the ACLU, with an organization representing the Bluegrass Institute, all rowing together, all making the argument that 41.99% is insufficient. We have to try something different. We have to look at different approaches to lower that recidivism rate. All of those organizations, whether it's workforce development that Mr. Atkinson and some of the challenges in filling these jobs that Mr. Atkinson spoke about, whether it's the fact that we're a commonwealth of, or if questioning whether we are a commonwealth of second, of third chances, the faith-based perspective from the Council of Churches and from the Catholic Conference, whether it's eliminating barriers, government-imposed barriers to reemployment, getting back to work and contributing to the community that the Bluegrass Institute would argue. Each of these organizations brings different lenses, views this situation through different lenses. Each of these organizations strongly endorses your bill and that of your colleagues, House Bill 40. As a spokesman, though, and I bring a bit of a different personal perspective to this issue, adding to the strange bedfellows nature, perhaps, of the organization. I view this through the lens of a former FBI special agent and a prosecutor, someone whose proudest day professionally was when I took the oath of office at the FBI Academy and was handed my badge and credentials, is someone who has a number of family members wearing the gray of the Kentucky State Police. I view recidivism as something a bit more robust than simply a number on a page or simply a statistic that we need to correct. I view the need to address recidivism as a mandate. Recidivism, to me, that higher rate indicates an officer safety issue. That higher rate indicates that we've failed, that we're allowing individuals who post-incarceration to reoffend, to victimize. That equates to more victims. That equates to more dangerous vehicle stops for our officers. Your bill is a tool in a toolkit and allowing individuals to get back to work, to contribute to society, as opposed to being a taker. Now your committee on a regular basis hears anecdotes, but you also are privy to data that demonstrates that reentry programs work, that in that bevy of tools in your toolkit, such as addiction treatment, such as mental health treatment, such as fatherhood classes, such as religious engagement, faith-based engagement, lowers recidivism rates, makes our communities safer. But of those, the most important that the data demonstrates is a job, and access to a job makes our communities safer, makes our officers safer, saves finite resources. And I commend to you, members of the committee, that our broad coalition, from the business community to the faith-based community to those that want to see a safer environment for our law enforcement officers, commend to you the desire to rapidly take up and pass House Bill 40. I don't want to deviate from my promise of brevity, but I want to close with a quote, sticking with our theme of some degree of incongruity. I'll tell you who the quote's from in a moment. As I'm walking through it, I want you to picture who might have articulated these words. It was in the context of after an offender has been brought to justice, the speaker admonishes to do all in your power to elevate and enable him, referring to the criminal, because sometimes in the future, he must probably and will work again and come out into the world and take the chances of life. If criminals are treated as men, capable of moral reform and elevation, if they are instructed in their duties and responsibilities as good citizens, and better still, perhaps if they could be taught some useful handicraft, whereby they might secure an honest livelihood when they return to society and maintain an honest and reputable character. No one can calculate the great service that thereby would be rendered to them and to humanity. Unfortunately, under our present system, this is too little thought of. Who articulated these words? A social worker? Mr. Chairman, these sound like they could have come from you, Mr. Chairman. These are from the mid-1800s, from one of the most hardcore, renowned lawmen in the history of American law enforcement, Alan Pinkerton, the founder of the Pinkerton Detective Agency, one of the most prolific law enforcement officers in our nation's history. He identified the need for reentry. He identified that being smart on crime and being tough on crime are not incongruent when done in a smart, data-driven way. So again, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today, and we strongly endorse House Bill 40.